Welcome to the world of boxing.
Boxing is a great sport, and during its long history it gave us boxers whose fights made our hearts beating harder. But time relentlessly goes to the moment for a boxer to leave the ring. Some boxers can recognize this moment, the others realize it through painful defeats that do not embellish their legendary careers. Today we're going to consider 5 fights in which the legendary boxers suffered crushing defeats and realized that they should forget about entering the ring again. Mike Tyson is a well-known boxer even among people whose knowledge of boxing news falls far short of that. They know his age, irrepressibility, and the aura of invulnerability. In the 80s, he was a phenomenon. He was a boxer like never seen before. However, youthfulness is not eternal, and on June 11, 2005, at the age of 38, he was another Mike Tyson. He was beaten by Danny Williams. His name was only in the ring, but nevertheless he hopes to resume his career after this defeat. Mike faced Kevin McBride, who was supposed to serve as a knockout victim and continue Mike's career for a little bit longer. But it turned out that Mike fired out of all guns he had, but barely touched McBride.
15 seconds left in the 6th round.
And if McBride actually wins this round, it would be a 10-7 round.
Tyson's state was very disappointing. He stood the battle during the first 6 rounds, but he had no strength to proceed to 7th one.
He's having difficulty getting up.
He wants Joe Cortez to help him.
That's it? Enough. That's me. I'm the boss. I'm the fucking boss. Enough, yes.
That's it. It's over, Al. It's over. Kevin McBride is the winner. Mike Tyson quits on his skull.
In such a way, the career of Mike Tyson came to an end.
I'm just sorry I let everybody down. I just don't have this in my heart anymore.
Does that mean we won't see you fight again?
Yeah, that's most likely. I'm not going to fight again. I'm not going to disrespect the sport anymore by losing to this caliber of fighters.
What would have happened if Mike were at the peak? It would have been total destruction of McBride in the first 3 rounds, with an absolute misunderstanding of the last about origin of all the hits and where was the way out. What happened to the legacy of Mike? Oh, nothing. Tyson was and remains one of the brightest figures in the history of boxing. Bernard Hopkins is one of those guys who climbed from the very bottom. Boxing helped him get out of jail, and Hopkins did not remain indebted to this kind of sport. He built a remarkable career after 12 successful world title defenses. It seemed that Bernard had achieved everything in boxing, but it was not enough for him, and he decided to conquer time, becoming the world's thrice oldest champion in the history of boxing, having won the champion's title at the age of 46, 47, and 49 years.
The oldest man ever to win a legitimate championship in boxing.
On December 17, 2016, there was his last fight, and Hopkins made it clear that this was his farewell battle in which he was going to complete his long career beautifully. His opponent was Joe Smith, whom Hopkins considered to be a good option for himself. As it was expected, in this fight Hopkins was 52 and Smith was given a chance to spoil the beautifully drawn script.
Hopkins' last fight 25 months ago, he was swamped.
In fact, the fight was competitive, but Smith was too tough for Hopkins, and in the 9th round, Smith knocked Bernard out of the ring he could never return to.
Big right hand.
He's out. Out free.
Oh, my God. And it's over. It's over, and it's going to be a knockout victory for Joe Smith.
This was the first early defeat in Hopkins' career.
And this was billed as your last fight, but given it is your last fight, you will not fight again?
No.
What would have happened if Hopkins were at the peak? Bernard was a tricky boxer during all his career, and in his best condition, he would have beaten Joe Smith by a unanimous decision. What happened to the legacy of Hopkins? By and large, nothing, but he has already formed the aura of a man capable of challenging time, and his defeat to Smith ruined this aura. Legendary Joe Louis had been ruling in the heavyweight division for 12 years, but his defeat to Ezzard Charles showed that the 36-year-old Louis met a correct moment to think about retirement. That time, Rocky Marciano appeared on the horizon. He masterfully dealt with opponents, and he had lack of loud victory over a famous rival, and therefore these two rivals faced each other in the ring on October 26, 1951 in New York. So, what did we expect from this battle? Despite doubts, logic suggested that Marciano should win. Nevertheless, Louis had a series of 8 wins in 11 months, so he assured that he has trumps to beat Marciano. But what really happened? There was an intense battle in 5 starting rounds, but 37-year-old Louis physically could not compete with the 28-year-old Marciano for a long time. And in the 8th round there was an outcome when Marciano twice knocked down Louis to the floor.
Now watch this. Marciano's hard left hook sends Louis sprawling to the canvas. Now watch. A left. Another left crumples Louis. A blazing right. And Louis sails through the ropes.
After the second knockdown, Louis could not continue the fight. It was the last fight of Joe Louis in the ring.
The working press try to help Joe back off the ring apron. Referee Goldstein on the left simply looks at the stricken fighter and knows that the ex-champion is finished for the night.
What would have happened if Louis were at the peak? I'm sure that it would be a big fight. Louis would have managed to carry out his smashing combos, causing serious damage to Marciano, and in the later rounds Louis would have finished this fight. Sugar Ray Leonard is one of the best boxers of the 80s and in the history of boxing. He was a lightning in the ring. Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns, Roberto Duran, Wilfred Benitez, and other legendary boxers could not stand his attacks. But everything has its limit. Leonard faced it on March 1, 1997 in Atlantic City. It was normal for Leonard to return, so there was not any surprise when he was back in the ring being 40 years old after a 6-year break, where he met his rival Hector Camacho. What was expected of this fight? To be honest, paying tribute to the greatness of Leonard, and despite his age and 6 years break, many people believed in Sugar's skills and experience. As for Camacho, he was still victorious, although the power of his punches faded away with age.
Leonard is down. He was hurt, he was trying to grab hold.
What happened? Leonard was declassed in the 5th round, and it was probably the worst Leonard's performance in his career. It was the first fight for Sugar to have early defeat, and it was his last fight.
Leonard in trouble. Joe Cortez is ready to stop this fight. Camacho landing, Cortez should stop it now. It's time. There it is. And it's all over. Everybody's wondering what next. Where do you go from here? I know you want some water first, but where do you go?
Oh, for sure. My career is definitely over in the ring. I mean,
5 years, 6 years down the road?
No. I mean, no one's ever put a halt to my, to me in a fight. No one, even Hagler. Oh, Tommy Hearns.
If I made 2 bad mistakes in my entire career, those would be Terry Norris and Hector Camacho. But you live and you learn. These things happen. Life goes on.
What would have happened if Leonard were at the peak? Surely he would have won. But taking into account that Camacho did not lose early a single battle in his career, it would be logical that Leonard would have won by a unanimous decision with a great breakaway. What happened to the legacy of Leonard? Oh, nothing. The moments of his legendary career completely overshadow his fiasco in the battle with Camacho.
He had to change his whole life to be Sugar Ray Leonard. And I think right now, still today, down inside is Ray Leonard. But Sugar Ray Leonard won't let him out.
Muhammad Ali can be safely called the icon of boxing. He was revolutionary in the sport. He showed what no one had done before him, thereby establishing a new era in the history of boxing.
I told you all that I was the greatest of all time.
However, the end of his career was just awful. In the 78th, he took revenge against Leon Spinks and seemed to retire from boxing, but could not resist the desire to return to the ring, and it so happened that the opponent was Ali's former sparring partner Larry Holmes, who at that time was at the peak and managed to hold 7 successful defenses of WBC belt. What did we expect from this fight? Holmes was at the peak while 38 years old Ali, after 2 years of break, was surely going to fight with wrong rival. Holmes was certainly expected to win. However, what happened? It was a massacre. Holmes dominated every second in this fight, until in the 10th round Angelo Dundee stopped this carnage.
Stay on! Angelo Dundee wants to stop the fight. That's it. They stopped the fight at TKO. It'll be scored as a technical knockout.
Of course, there was still a fight with Trevor Berbick after that, but it was the fight with Holmes that put an end to Ali's career.
Today, former heavyweight boxing champ Muhammad Ali understands that all too well.
What would have happened if Ali were at the peak? Holmes was a great fighter, so his chances should not be discounted. But Ali at his peak was a little faster and better. I think that Ali would take over in a close combat. What happened to Ali's legacy? His status of the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time remained. But perhaps this is one of the most sad moments in the history of boxing, to see how he was terribly beaten.
Just have to face it, nothing lasts ever, not even Muhammad Ali.
Thank you for watching the video. If you know the legendary boxers that just finished their careers after a bitter defeat, write in the comments and we will make one more part of the video together. See you soon.